Welcome back to Buy or Sell, the series where you pitch me your predictions, and I either buy or sell them and explain why. If you want to get in on the action, leave a comment below starting with Buy or Sell. I'll consider your idea for a future video. So let's get to it. This is Buy or Sell, Episode 3. Let's start with Entity. Kings Island will get a Mock Rides Extreme Spinner by 2024. I'm selling this. I do think 2024 is a good year for a new coaster, but a Mock Rides Extreme Spinner I think is unrealistic. I think this is the year they finally replace Vortex, and they may even do that with a Mock. I don't think it's impossible to see an Extreme Spinner, but I think the park can use a coaster like Copperhead Strike, and if I was a betting man, I would put money on a Mock multi-launch. Aiden Clifford. Cedar Fair will become more aggressive in the industry within this next decade. A couple years ago, I predicted that Cedar Fair would acquire a coaster park. That didn't happen. They did acquire the Schlitterbahn water parks in Texas, but that's been it ever since 2006. Buying the Paramount parks was a huge move, but that was totally out of Cedar Fair's character. Once Cedar Fair became an official chain, they bought Dorney Park in 1992, Worlds of Fun in 1995, Knott's in 1997, and Michigan's Adventure in 2001. It seems like they wait for the perfect opportunity, and if they don't see one, they're gonna stay put. I wouldn't bet on any big moves that would be considered aggressive in the next decade. Merrick. SeaWorld will try to purchase Herschend. I'm buying this. Here's my reasoning. Why not? Cedar Fair turned them down, thankfully. If they want to expand, why not target Herschend? If you're not familiar, this company operates Dollywood, Silver Dollar City, Wild Adventures, and most recently, Kentucky Kingdom. The only question is, was SeaWorld serious about that offer? Or was that just some kind of show of strength? There's a lot of people that think this was all for show. Regardless, it doesn't matter if the chain is up for sale or not. SeaWorld will come in and drop an offer anyway. Noob. New major theme park in the Pacific Northwest in the next 5 to 10 years. You got Wild Waves, the Washington State Fair, even though that's not open most of the year. Then you got the two parks near Portland. Seattle and Portland are expanding, but I would not bet on seeing a new major park there. It's a super underserved market, but the weather is pretty bad, and I think that holds them back. Paul Young. Six Flags America will get a new coaster by 2028. It's been a long time since they got anything new. We're talking 21 years. That seems impossible, considering the park isn't that small. It's not like Frontier City. This was once a favorite park in the chain. Six Flags paid as much attention to this park as any other park, but that dropped off a cliff after 2001. So, will we see something here over the next 6 years? I'm buying this. Six Flags has a new CEO. He's bringing a new approach to investment, and maybe that'll end up working in Six Flags America's favor. Even if we're talking about a free spin, that counts. John Runing. Vekoma will build a traditional hypercoaster by 2025. Some of you may remember when Energylandia was debating between an Intamin Hyper and a Vekoma Hyper. They went with Intamin, but Vekoma's model is still out there. That's the first step. Next, they need to find a buyer. Vekoma is so popular in Europe and Asia, it seems like they open multiple major coasters every year. It's only a matter of time before some park over there wants a hyper, and they ask Vekoma to do it. It's probably a cheaper option than other manufacturers, so I can see it happening over the next 3 years. Wheatman 14 Adventures in Roblox. American Eagle will be refurbished by 2025. I'm buying this. I heard the clock was ticking on American Eagle. That was a couple years ago. The park really needs to make a call on its future. They might rip it out for something new. I also heard they can't do this because the freeway is too close. If they want to keep American Eagle around, which I personally think they should do, we'll see some new trains on there by 2025. Maybe, hopefully some track work also. Peter Gallego. California's Great America will replace Grizzly by 2023. As much as I would love to see this go, I have to sell. Grizzly still draws in the crowds. I'm sure that's mainly because it's a big wooden coaster. Plus, the capacity is pretty bad when they only have one train, and they send that train out like once every 7 minutes. And even though I think it's forceless and boring, others may appreciate that it's not that intense and not that rough. This would make for an awesome RMC hybrid, but we can't always have nice things. I think Grizzly stays. Dorito time. Kennywood does not add any coasters through 2030. Kennywood just swung for the fences with Steel Curtain, a hypercoaster with 9 inversions. That's no minor addition. That's no filler coaster. This was their first new coaster since 2010. That was when the park added Skyrocket. This was a major addition also, but not quite as big. 9 years had to pass before Kennywood added something new. If you're asking if they'll go 11 years after Steel Curtain before adding anything new, I'm buying that. I could very well be wrong, but given their track record, I can see them waiting a long time. 3 years down, 8 to go. Appleman. Magic Mountain will keep Viper around, but they will remove Scream and put something else on that plot in the next 5 years. Appleman, you like to tell me what I want to hear. I would love to see Viper stay and Scream get moved to another park. Will it happen? My rational side says no. I have to sell this. Neither coaster draws much of a line. For Scream, I think it's because it's hard to find. Viper is right there on the main path, but it's still always a walk-on. It's also 13 years older, and it's a model that's dying off quick. Maybe they both end up leaving, but I don't really think Scream's going anywhere. There's no way that leaves the park, but Viper stays. Kyle Minnelli. Six Flags Great America will remove their go-karts and Buccaneer Battle to build a dive coaster. I think it's unlikely to remove 2 rides for a dive coaster, but I do think this park could definitely end up with a dive coaster. So let's measure the plot. This is 515 by 197 feet, separated by a road in the park's back area. This is too small on either side for a dive like Valraven, and it's way too thin for a dive like Griffin. This is even about 100 feet too thin for a dive like Emperor. A smaller scale dive coaster with a linear layout could work here, so I guess it can't be ruled out. It's just a little too specific for me to buy. I do hope at least the park knows they can do this if they want to. Jared Brummett. The Big Apple coaster closes in the next 5 years. I'm selling this with confidence. They just invested millions of dollars to replace the trains. If they close it, it won't be voluntary. It'll have to be due to some major malfunction, or maybe an accident, something unexpected. This thing derailed on the lift hill. That didn't slow it down. It's still there, raking in the money, $19 to $23 at a time. I gotta think, it's still profitable. The resort seems interested in keeping it open for the long term. Devon 714. Knott's will remove the classic flywheel launch on Montezuma's Revenge. As soon as I heard this was closing for a year, that was the first thing I thought of. This happened to Psyche Underground at Wallaby, Belgium. That got rid of the flywheel for an LIM launch back in 2013. I don't know what kind of problems Montezuma's launch gave the park, or if the shutdown is totally unrelated, but unless they're just messing with the brakes, the amount of time this is going to be down tells me it's probably the launch. I would still rather have an LIM launch than no Montezuma at all. Elijah Malone. We will see a 500 plus foot launch coaster in the next 10 years. We saw a huge race to the top from 2000 to 2005, but after King Knott, everyone seemed to back off. I think part of that had to do with launch technology. The hydraulic launch fell out of style for a reason, and everyone's using LSMs. These are more reliable, but less powerful. I think at some point over the next 10 years, Intamin may take their shot. They used LSMs on Red Force, and that's 367 feet tall. Maybe they'll shoot for the 500 foot mark. We just have to wait for someone to buy one. Six Flags Qiddiya, you're up. Saika. Vipera will be relocated to another Six Flags park after it was just canceled for La Ronde. There are so many rumors about this ride and why it was such a failure. At first, I heard that California had some laws that kept it from running properly. The cars were flipping too much and coming back to the station upside down. Safety laws say the ride ops can't rotate the cars back to upright, so they cut down on how much the ride flipped, and that just made it uncomfortable. Then I heard it was possibly a national issue. These may be federal safety laws. They sent it to Canada, so that kinda lines up. Let's assume that Zack spins just don't work in America. Six Flags can't send this to Mexico, but they already got a free spin. Without having all the facts as to why it got taken out of Magic Mountain, or why it got canceled at La Ronde, I'm gonna sell this. I think the most likely scenario is it gets scrapped, or maybe they sell it to a park overseas. I don't see it popping up at a Six Flags park. Burned up Sparky tips and reviews. Within 10 years, Six Flags Fiesta Texas will scrap Wonder Woman, and they'll replace it with an SNS Access. I'm definitely selling this, but it may not be as crazy as it sounds. Look at the Deja Vu clones. Did anyone really think those would be gone in 6 to 10 years? The Raptors may have the same fate, but I would bet against it. If Six Flags wanted to put an Access at Fiesta Texas, which I think makes a lot of sense, I would look over to Pandemonium's plot to do it. I've been on the hype train of Pandemonium getting removed for a couple years now. I never considered Wonder Woman getting taken out. Matthew DiGennaro. Six Flags Fiesta Texas gets the only dive coaster in the Six Flags chain. The B&M dive coaster is a whole new world for Six Flags. I don't know what their future plans are with B&M, but I can't imagine this will be the only one. I have to sell this. I can see this being limited to their big parks, so you may see one at Magic Mountain, or Great Adventure, or Great America, possibly down to Discovery Kingdom or New England, and maybe the big parks get a 200-footer, but the 150-foot compact models could be popping up a lot over the next few years. Pitt Sony. Six Flags will pull the brand name off Darien Lake, and the park will close for good within the next 5 years. So it's important to know that Six Flags doesn't own Darien Lake, it just operates it. I don't know if they have some kind of contract that will expire soon. I looked everywhere and I couldn't find a time frame. It seems like this park is falling apart over the last 2 years. I don't know why it's taken a turn for the worse, and I don't know if they have the intention of bringing it back. I'm gonna sell this. I think it's a little dramatic to assume that Six Flags is gonna ditch the park, and even more dramatic to assume that the park will close within 5 years. But keep your eye on that if it keeps slipping. There was the rumor that Ride of Steel was gonna close, and that's been debunked. But if that was true, I think the park would be in trouble. Ann Mitchell. Six Flags Great Adventure will announce a new coaster for their 50th anniversary in 2024. I'm buying this. I know coaster enthusiasts care more about park birthdays than the parks themselves, but it does seem like they make an effort to get a new coaster when they hit the milestones. Over Texas got New Texas Giant for their 50th anniversary. Magic Mountain planned on opening Wonder Woman on their 50th. 2024 will be 3 years since Jersey Devil, so maybe that would be a good year for a Premier Rides launch coaster, or maybe one of those B&M dives. Ghoster Coaster. Energylandia gets a Giga in the next 5 years. I've learned one thing over the last 4 years. Yeah, that's right, one thing. Don't underestimate Energylandia. They have a lot of family rides, but they seem to be adding a major new coaster every year. I think over the next 5 years, they'll find their way to a Giga. I'm buying this. They may have to add a mock extreme spinner, then a B&M wing, then an S&S compressed air coaster, and anything else big they can get their hands on. But 5 years is a big window, and this park has a lot of resources. Also, they have a lot of land. It's going to be interesting to see how big this park gets before they slow down. Wrench. Carowinds gets a GCI or a Gravity Group wooden coaster as their next coaster. If you look at the Carowinds lineup, a modern wooden coaster is their biggest gap, so I'm buying this. It makes perfect sense to RMC Hurler, and then they can get a coaster like American Thunder or Texas Stingray. Unless they want something big from Gravity Group, I'm seeing a GCI here. They already have a family wooden coaster, so it wouldn't make sense for them to add something like Kentucky Flyer. Cedar Fair has also never worked with Gravity Group. It does seem like they were going to add one from Dorney Park, so at least it's on the table. Still, I see a 100-foot GCI in their future. Let's end episode 3 with Barry. The Knott's Giga will be built later this year. When I first heard this rumor, I thought it was insane. Then we saw the leaked plans and I realized that Cedar Fair was really going for this thing. Assuming those plans are real, and I've never heard anyone imply that they're not, the only thing standing in their way is city approval. Knott's is surrounded by homes and businesses, but they do already have a 300-foot ride at Supreme Scream. The big question here is noise. If they fill the track with sand and explain that to the city, maybe they get away with it. If I had to bet on it, I would say it happens. It's hard to imagine seeing that right in the middle of Knott's, but if Cedar Fair wants to do it, I won't complain. That's a wrap for episode 3. Let me know if you have any thoughts on any of these topics, if you think I was spot on or way off and why. Don't forget to leave your ideas for future videos, and put the words buy or sell in front of them so I can find them easily. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, and if you're new here, give me a sub. I have a playlist for this series if you want to check out the other episodes. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-road footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to love baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.